Infinity Warriors. This is WWK coming to you from utopianchaos.com. Today I'm going to walk you through the deck building UI, but first I thought we would have a look at the anatomy of some cards. So the first thing we look at when we look at a card is the card's name. In this case, Flame Dawn Aspirant. He costs 1 resource to play and 1 morale when he dies. As a general rule, a card's resource cost is the same as its morale cost. Down in the left corner, we see a character's power and health. In this case, 2 power and 1 health. In Infinity Wars, health is not reset after each turn. When you get hit, the damage stays on that character until it either dies or is healed. The italic text is the flavor text, and this is not relevant to gameplay. It does, however, provide a lot of insight into the lore of Infinity Wars. Below that is where you'll find keywords and abilities. These are parts of a card that will affect gameplay. Underneath that, we see a card's type. This particular one is a character who is also a human. In addition, he is unlimited. An unlimited card is one that you can run more than 3 of in a deck. If we have a look at another card, Agent Coil Firestarter, you can see that unlimited is replaced with unique. This means you cannot play it from your hand if you already control one on the field. So just to recap and to show the difference, Agent Coil Firestarter costs 7 resources to play and 7 morale when he dies. He hits for 4 damage and has 4 health, and he has a lot more abilities than the lowly Aspirant. He is a very rare card, indicated on the card by being legendary. The rarity scale is common, uncommon, rare, epic, then legendary. Down at the very bottom of the card is where the game's talented artists take ownership of their work. Finally, the last thing to look at on a card is its purity. Purity is indicated by the faction symbols in the bottom left. As you can see, Coil is 2 purity with 2 faction symbols. Our friend the Flame Dawn Aspirant only has 1 purity. However, if we wander down to the dragons, you'll see Dragon of Wisdom has a whopping 3 purity. So what does purity mean, and how does it relate to deck building? To prevent the very best cards from every faction thrown together in one deck, Lightmare created the purity mechanic, which is tied to your commander choices. The commanders you choose dictate the level of purity you have. I cannot use a card with 2 purity symbols unless I have 2 commanders of that faction. This also means I cannot use Firestarter as a commander unless I also have another Flame Dawn commander. Some incredibly powerful cards have 3 purity, like this dragon. These require you to dedicate yourself to this one faction to use. This means all 3 commander slots need to be filled with characters from that faction. However, not all factions can do everything, and a single faction deck like this would be at an extreme disadvantage. That's where factionless cards come in. Down here. Factionless cards can do everything other factions can do. They are just slower, weaker, and more costly than their faction counterparts. The key to building any deck, no matter what purity level it is to use factionless cards to complement your strengths and to cover your weaknesses. Now that the basics are covered, let's look at the deck builder itself. To demonstrate, I will be building a deck that is possible to build with the Rising Sun starter deck and Varroa's Death Do Us Part. This deck will use Flame Dawn's speed and Varroa's control elements to try and secure a quick win. As commanders, we will add Bromic, the field commander, and a Flame Dawn footman. So we select Bromic and click Add Commander. Then we do the same for the footman. This gives us 2 Flame Dawn purity. Now we want a Varroa card to allow us access to Varroa spells. The best option from the Varroa starter deck is Candid Head Researcher, who will allow us to keep our handful of cards. So we find Candid and add her. Now we have all the 3 commanders selected, we can choose our characters. You may notice in our collection, our characters are listed alphabetically and by faction. So we have our faction list at the top, followed by Warpath, then Genesis, then Varroa, Flame Dawn, the Dragons, and finally the Sleepers of Avarak. The same order exists for abilities and then locations. The maximum limit of a non-unlimited card is 3. However, you can run more in a deck by putting one or more in a command slot. For example, I can place 3 Flame Dawn Footmen in my deck. And now I can run more than 3 by having one in my command slot. However, the starter pack only gave us 3, so for this purpose we can only use 2 in this deck. To remove a card, simply double click it in the deck. We now have 2 options for unlimited characters, Flame Dawn Aspirant or Death Worshipper. Since the idea is to kill an opponent as quickly as possible, we will go with the Aspirant. Keep in mind, nothing is stopping us from using both, beyond the Death Worshipper complementing a different deck style. Unlimited characters are limited only by the number you own. In my case, it's 101. For the case of this deck, it's the 16 Lightmare Provide in Rising Sun. As a general rule, I don't go over 8 unlimited characters, but we have limited options for this deck, so let's go with 10. Knight of the Flame Dawn is a solid cost to stat ratio card, so we want to use both of him. Also, Aerial Commando has the added benefit of an evasion ability. 1, 2, 3. We will also add Aberon, who can help us apply pressure if the game goes late and our smaller guys just aren't enough. Finally, we'll add 2 Beasts of Burden and 2 Death Worshippers. These will only be used as Plan B if we can build them up strong enough. Now with our commanders, we do not have access to the awesome Mass Death or Reflective Shield from Varroa. However, we can use Call the Crusade and Burning Prejudice. As you can see, Mass Death is a 2 purity spell, as is Reflective Shield. We do not have access to that. We can, however, use Burning Prejudice, which we have 1 of, and Call the Crusade, which we have 3 of. We will also use Exhaust and Stumble from Flame Dawn. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Finally, we'll take full advantage of our dip into Varroa and take all the cool removal spells they offer. That was 3 Death Rays. Notice if I add more, the number does not increase. You're limited to 3. We had 3 Heat Waves and 3 Lightning Blast. As you can see down here, the deck is legal. So what would happen if I were to try and add Warpath? Suddenly I'm told that I need a Warpath commander. So let's try and take out my Footman and add a Killaroo. Now, due to my 2 Purity Flame Dawn cards, I'm told I need 2 Flame Dawn commanders. So, remove the Killaroo and put our Footman back in. Where is he? And get rid of our one of many. Above the deck legality, we can see a bar graph with a breakdown of the card types in our deck. For this type of aggressive fast deck, we want more characters and abilities, so here we're good. Finally, above that we have the power curve. This shows you via a column graph the breakdown of your deck's costs. Ideally, for a deck like this one, we would want a descending staircase effect. And you would also want it to end around 4 or 5 at the very most. So if you build this deck yourself, when you make changes to it, you would look for a lot more 2-cost spells, and you'd cut out some of the 5 costs. A minimum deck size is 40 cards, with no maximum. Quick decks like this want to stick to the minimum. So it looks like we have finished creating a deck. Now we just go over to save, and confirm, and we're ready to play. Thanks guys for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to check out www.utopianchaos.com for loads of information concerning Infinity Wars and other dTCG games you play. I'm WW Knight, and until next time, I'll see you next time.